Are you looking to start a podcast? Then see this episode's show notes for our unique promo code to get up to 2 months of free podcasting service with Libsyn when you sign up for a new account. Get your show on Apple and Spotify. Get helpful audience building stats and all the support you need to sound your best. They can even do video. Bring your podcast to life and have your voice heard here, there, and everywhere with Libsyn. Again, see our show notes for our unique Libsyn promo code and get podcasting.
You're listening to CreepGeeks Podcast. So it begins again. Welcome back to the CreepGeeks Podcast, Season 7, Episode 287.
Top 3 most recent cryptid sightings: soldier whistleblower Fort Bragg, and Threads is dead.
Yes. I'm Greg.
I'm Omi.
And you're making a weird face.
Yeah.
Got to practice it in the mirror.
Oh, the weird face?
No, the title. Like reading.
The title is incoherent.
No, it's
incomprehensible.
Not. You have to read it like you're a newscaster or somebody's, what do you call those shows that are TMZ or something?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Add a little life to the podcast.
Not if it makes no
Spruce
sense.
it up. It makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. You know who loves it?
The algorithm.
SEO. Search Engine Optimization.
Okay.
All right. So anyway, now that I've explained how podcast titling works, so Omi, we're going to move back into the podcast. We are a podcast where we do all sorts of cool stuff, mainly talking about cool stuff.
Okay.
Because we got stuff, to do and not to do. Sort of depends on the heat. It's hot. I don't like it.
No. I made a joke last night how in between hot girl summer and big boy fall, it's gnat season.
Gnats can go to hell.
It's just nothing but muggy humidity and gnats in the air.
All aggressive bugs can go to hell.
Yeah.
The ones that try to fly right in your mouth. They're like, oh, here we go. It's like, no.
Eyeballs.
It's inappropriate. All right, so anyway, here's the deal. We have a telephone number that you can call if you'd like to leave us a message or a series of messages, and we'll play them on the podcast. It's toll free. Doesn't cost you anything but your time.
And that phone number is going to be 575-208-4025.
That's right. So you can call and share with us. And we have active social media pages that you can jump into and explore, maybe contribute a little bit if you'd like. And we're not going to tell you what they are. You'll just have to stay tuned to find out.
Or you can just check the show notes for each episode of the podcast. We put links to everything in those.
Now they have no reason to stay.
Oh, hush.
That's it. All right. So anyway, here's the deal. There's been a couple different things going on in the internets and on the internets. It's been making things kind of weird, right? Even more so than usual. So we had basically did our last podcast. We included some stuff, but our podcast would have been like 3 hours long if we were going to include everything we wanted to talk about.
Okay.
And that's excessive.
Sure.
That's just too much.
All right.
Yeah. Because some people do that. They have like these 4-hour podcasts. And I'm like, that's a lot. That's a lot of talking. You know what I mean?
It's a radio show.
Oh, yeah, it is. So I'm like, okay. Yeah. We do things like we include, messages from our patrons and people that call in from the 1-800 number comments. We talk about stuff where people come up to us in parking lots. We used to call them like parking lot conversations, but then when I started looking at them, like they kind of could be, that doesn't look right. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'll take that out. Maybe we'll do this. And we have things that we like to add. And then a lot of times we finish up the podcast and we eat dinner.
Yes.
And I think this dinner is going to be BLTs.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Yep. Me too. At least when you make your own BLT, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
Our last podcast, we talked about shrinkflation.
Yes.
And so, it's a thing. But we have another sort of an update on shrinkflation.
And what is that?
It's that basically these fast food companies are being sued.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm not one for litigious things, right? What?
As we sit there and power through at least like 3 legal drama TV shows.
That's why I use the word litigious. But, I mean, to me, I'm like, they kind of deserve it.
Yeah.
But see, and I always try to see both sides of everything. And I can understand where a company would want things to be a certain way, but the employees don't give a crap enough to maintain that certain way. And hold on, I'm going somewhere before you try to jump in there and defend everybody, because it's not going to work this time.
Oh, no, I
because you get a worker and they get paid or whatever, but eventually they're like, okay, you want too much for what I'm trying to do based off the compensation amount we agreed upon.
Yeah.
You know, and it's your company. So if it's your company, you care more about it than me. It's not my company. I'm working.
Yeah.
In exchange for compensation.
Yeah.
I have no real vested interest other than that. And that should be an expectation that companies have.
Yeah.
You know, it's not my company. I don't care. Because you can't, because there's just too much stuff going on. If you're a worker and you're doing things in exchange for compensation, to expect that you would grow the love or whatever and the drive and determination to, you know, extend even more of yourself for that company when it's not actively yours. Yeah, I can see where that would be an issue. And I can also see where you would put the time, effort, and your heart and soul into a job, and it winds up being that the company doesn't actually care about you when it comes time to care about you. Yeah. So you got to do what you got to do. So the point of this whole lawsuit, right? Mm-hmm. And I think you showed this to me, is that we all know that buyer beware exists.
Yeah.
Right. And we know that when you look at advertising, you're like, okay, this is what this should look like, and this is what I should get. The expectation versus reality. When you go in there and you see this ad on TV and you're like, and getting this Mexican pizza, it looks amazing. Right?
That's why you use this link, because this link did have better picture examples.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Even though people at home can't see it, but if you go to our website or wherever and you see our show notes, we have links to all this stuff. And then you look at it and you're like, this is an amazing Mexican pizza. Mm-hmm. I'm going to get it. It's going to be fantastic. You know, the picture pleases me. My expectations are good. And then you get it, and it's like dog food. Right, on top of, like, you know, you've got like a flat, no, it looks like trash. You have a flat, soggy tortilla.
Yes.
Right, some sort of meat. Mm-hmm. Another flat, soggy tortilla on top. Some slimy looking cheese. It just does not look the same. Agreed. And where if you didn't grow up in this country and know this is what you get, you'd be like, this is not mine. I didn't order this. This is dog food.
And the biggest problem is the marketing of these pieces of food when it comes to the shrinkflation and misrepresentation of food. I mean, clearly, if we were to talk about Mexican pizza, you can conjure your own image in your head of the Mexican pizza from this fast food restaurant. But the image that's presented on commercials, it doesn't even look like the same product. Right. And it also looks like it has been prepared, not just prepared differently, because then you can fall that back onto the employees, but it looks like it's been prepared with different ingredients. So, I mean, because there's...
Yes, that would be false advertising.
Yes. And there's just such a rise in people tired of products being misrepresented to.
Well, that's because these companies have taken it too far.
Yeah.
So before they could kind of get away with it, right?
Yeah.
But now with shrinkflation, paying more for less, as in like it's like your benefit, blaming workers on not wanting to do the job while not paying them anymore while making massive profits. All of this is sort of culminating. Yeah. And so for the past 3 years, there's been a rise in false advertising lawsuits against these big food chains like McDonald's, Burger King, Wendy's, and now Taco Bell are among the companies targeted by consumers.
Yes.
I mean, and it makes sense because we do frequent these fast food places because it is a convenience. And every time, I don't have the expectation that it's going to look as pretty as a picture.
I know.
And that's sad. I should be like, this is going to be amazing, but I'm not because I know what's going to happen. But now it's even worse.
It is.
You know, I mean, my expectations are measured by, I got it. You know, it's going to be, it is, as long as it tastes okay, I don't have to look at it because eventually it's not going to look as pretty when it goes through my digestive system and turns into that wondrous stuff we call poop.
Yeah. But like, I mean, there's a really great example in a Twitter image that these people shared, and it was Wendy's, and Wendy's has that new bourbon bacon burger, which sounds delicious and has a $9 price tag attached to it. The photo that represents it has a white background. It's well lit. The bun shines with a slight butter finish. It's using like little pieces of onion, like deep fried onion bits. And then the burger that this person received looks exactly the same as one of the regular Wendy's hamburgers.
Yes.
With 2 onion rings, not onion shards or strips or whatever.
Yeah.
2 onion rings and a tiny plop of what I'm assuming is onions and barbecue sauce. And it's unappealing. If I unwrapped that, I'd be like, oh.
Yeah, and at that point you have to go, did they make it wrong or is this what I'm supposed to get?
And then
nobody ever complains when you get like chicken nuggets or something. There's like 10 extra fries in there just because they're scooping them up with all the rest of the crap, right? Or maybe I did see where there was an occasion where somebody got chicken nuggets and they kind of ran out, so they threw a couple, chicken patties in there. So like big flat. And I'm like, I'll allow it, right?
Yeah.
Because the only thing that you can't do, I mean, they do taste differently, of course, but makes it hard to dip. But then you can eat your way down to where you can make a piece to go in it. But yeah. This is crap, man. So these companies are being sued, and so far they're saying there hasn't really been a whole lot of success in the past 3 years because it doesn't equal like juicy patties and everything else that you expect based off the advert.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. I mean, some of these things have gotten to the point where you look at the picture and the patty itself is 3 times larger than the little sliver. It's not even 1/8 inch tall. It runs all the way across, and it's like, I don't know. And there's even been a trend that we've noticed in our own non-scientific science research that we've done using our dog.
Yeah.
And she will smell it and then not eat it. Yeah. She's like, oh, this is delicious quarter pounder? No.
Yeah.
Oh, this is, no. Oh, this is Taco Bell? No, she just will not. And it makes me wonder if this goes back to where like somebody planted a crop of or just regular corn.
Yeah.
And then a crop right next to it of organically modified genetically modified. And all the wild animals tore up the regular stuff, but the modified stuff just basically stayed.
And that's because it's been genetically modified to deter pests, which in actuality are insects and animals. So if the crop that your food is made from...
How?
Yeah, that's the scary thing.
How is it doing it? Because if a rat won't eat it, and we've seen the pizza rat in New York drag a big slice of pizza down the stairs, and a field mouse, with all he could eat, right? If they won't eat it, maybe we shouldn't eat it.
Yeah. And we've noticed that because our dog, she will eat the more expensive things sometimes. But when it just comes to, let's grab, all of us 3 burgers real quick while we're on our way to something, she won't touch it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she's that way with a lot of stuff that you'd buy like from somewhere like Walmart's or whatever. She just won't. But like Aldi's though, she does.
She'll eat Panera bread.
So.
And that, I'm like, you bougie little dog.
Yeah, right now there's somebody going, Panera bread's not bougie.
I know, but for a dog,
these people live in a cave.
I know, we do.
It's like, no, it's a bunker, and we have a realistic expectation.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, but anyway, shrinkflation's real. This is part of it, and hopefully this continuous onslaught of lawsuits over 3 years, so it's really not an onslaught.
Yeah,
we'll do something to either make them do one of 2 things: change the way their food looks and make it more in line with what you see in the picture. That'd be great. But all they're going to do is just fire up an advertising campaign and just take a different picture.
And see,
and they'll still do the best picture they can based off the product. But it's not, they're just going to be some sort of truth in advertising, or they're just going to settle.
Yeah.
And we won't hear any more about it.
This does tie into the shrinkflation we talked about because, we've been talking about how it doesn't match the picture as far as looks. The 2 most recent lawsuits pertain to actual size, because 35% beefier than reality is the current lawsuit against Burger King. Everything's showing the differently displayed patty. I saw another lawsuit just recently, I think last week, about Taco Bell representing size on something else. And they're not going to fool us through the marketing, especially if I'm paying $9 just for the sandwich and it doesn't fill me up anymore.
Well, they're going to fool us via the marketing. They're just not going to win a lawsuit. If you file a lawsuit against a company based off the marketing, then they could do it, like blame it on the coworkers or the employees or whatever.
Well, you got to provide them with.
But, the consistency would be if you have a full expectation to get a quarter pounder. Mm-hmm. And I think that I don't know if McDonald's still says quarter pounder hamburger on it, or if they've just QPC. Taken it off.
Yes.
See,
all
so
of them
then
say
if
QPC
the whole thing
now.
weighs like a quarter pound or over that, then they're safe. But it used to be, like Wendy's used to say, Wendy's thick and juicy, and had the square hamburgers that leak all over the place.
Yeah.
It was great, and things are different. So anyway, moving back in the podcast, just next time you get a Mexican pizza, and we're not going to say it's from Taco Bell, but since they're listed on this website, news article type website, which is msn.com, the bastion of truth, I guess.
Yeah.
Then you can read it for yourself. But it's true, though. I mean, you look at it and you're like, oh, this would look like if I got this Mexican pizza, if I got it fresh wherever Mexican pizzas come from. And then the one you get, it's like, oh, this must have been around since yesterday. It's kind of like when your parents are like, come home for dinner. And then you get home and it's just leftovers. And you're like, well, there you go. It's sad, really. So anyway, good. I hope that they would make things or change things. And I think there eventually needs to be enough consumer uprising to where they'll stop with the whole shrinkflation thing. Which they don't care. Because they're going to, you know what they're going to do? Mm-hmm. They're just going to keep it the same. And say, hey, okay, we won't do any more, and we'll just make the price higher than it was before because now you'll accept a higher price.
Yeah.
Just like with gas.
Well, okay, not necessarily with gas, but the example that keeps coming to mind for me is mascara. We had a lot of these advertising campaigns in makeup about this mascara that made people's eyes really big and beautiful. And too many consumers got upset, 1 or 2 lawsuits maybe, but there was enough backlash that after the lawsuits, the only thing that happened was these amazing commercials come out with these women with these beautiful eyes, but now there's a tiny little asterisk, just like prescription medication, at the bottom that says eyelashes appear 35% larger because model is a professional model with good eyes and also has filler eyelashes.
It's like, oh, because model looks better than you.
Yeah.
You thin-lashed, bug-eyed person.
And it literally says that. And you're just like, on all of the mascara makeup commercials, and you're just like, so you're telling me that you're just putting this commercial out here with this product that is also smaller packaging for double the price now, and it's not actually going to make my eyes look like this. So the
disclaimer is that, well, if you don't look as good, it's because you're ugly.
Yeah, it's because A, you're ugly, and B, you're not wearing filler lashes. Oh. So, yeah.
Well, the struggle is tough for women or people who wear mascara.
And that's how I feel it's going to be like, because like I'm looking as a photographer at some of these photos that the lawsuit are over. I feel like they're going to have a little asterisk that basically says, burger will not look like this unless you have a professional photographer and warm lighting.
And just like they do on like Wish or whatever, where they put a little thing that basically says that there may be a slight difference in appearance and or size due to manufacturing process. They could do the same thing. May have a slight, due to like the assembly process or something. Whatever. Either way, we lose.
Yeah.
Speaking of lose, deers are eating snakes. It's a freaking, it's gross. I don't know what it is. I'm a little queasy today, I guess. But I watched this thing and I've seen it before.
And that's what
it's just it's just disgusting.
I was going to say, we have seen a video and photos like this a few years ago. Well, now there's this new video. I'm not sure if it's the original or the one we saw a few years ago, but clearly there is a younger deer, and it is full-on eating a snake. And I shared it to the CreepGeeks Facebook group. Y'all can watch it there. But I kind of, because I've seen some disturbing footage like this before, I went and looked it up. And apparently, while deer are considered herbivores, they will occasionally eat things like bones, carrion, roadkill.
Carrion.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. They will occasionally eat meat if there is a gap in their nutritional diet. And
yeah, but it's the comment, I think, is what makes me feel nauseous about it. It's like, I take it that's not a fruit roll-up.
Yeah.
And it's just like, just, and it's just like, it's.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go for that part.
It's disgusting.
Or the part about, like, on some of the other websites about this, I've seen things like, this is how the zombie apocalypse start, things like that. Whereas what we should really be looking at is, what is the major nutritional gap in some of these herbivores' diets that they're eating?
Well, maybe it's protein.
Yeah. I mean,
I still think that dogs and animals don't look at food as being food. They smell it and their brains go, this meets the nutritional requirement.
yeah.
I'm eating bone because I'm low on calcium or whatever.
Yeah.
And they just eat it. I don't think they look at it and go, that's going to be delicious.
Yeah, I don't think
I think they look at it and a little instinct switch flips in their heads and they go, I can consume this because I need this, and they just eat.
Yeah.
Like their little brains turn off and they're just chewing up a snake.
Well, we were talking about
gross.
GMO crops and everything. And if GMO crops and pesticides that are out there deter bugs, and if that plant was in the wild being eaten by a deer, the deer would be eating the plant with the bug on it, and that would be its protein source. But if we're killing off the bugs and we're making GMO crops, the deer's not getting that little minuscule bit of protein with its lunch. So, of course, it's going to eat a snake, which is disturbing.
Well, we're just assuming.
Yeah,
we don't want to
true.
assume. Maybe the snake was just
Maybe
there
the
and
snake
the deer
was
was
a jerk.
mad at it. Yeah. Maybe the deer was like, you know what? That's it.
Yeah.
You've pushed me to my limit. I will chew on you with my dull teeth. It's gross.
So, yeah, it's not necessarily a cryptid, folks, but it is
It's
little bit
still, it's
disturbing.
behavior that is, if you've seen that, it'd be off-putting. And since there is a thing called near deer, not deer,
Yeah.
I'd put that in a category. If I seen that, if it was some mangy-looking scroungy deer eating a snake,
Yeah.
I would leave. I'm like, man, nature sucks. I'm out of here, man. This is uncool,
I would too.
because it wouldn't be right. It's off-putting. It sets off the whole uncanny valley thing, but towards the environment that you're in. If you're out in an environment, everything seems slightly off, and you notice it, then what's the deal? Is it you or is it everything else? And of course, we're selfish. It's going to be about me or you. Like, this is wrong. Let's go. Okay, so there's been some sightings, like cryptid sightings, that are kind of worth talking about. Some of these have happened a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago or whatever. But I figured we'd go ahead and put them in there because a lot of the sightings that we used to talk about all the time are just sort of incidental. You read it and you're kind of like, well, okay, this is just something to make a news article, and maybe it just doesn't have enough meat on the snake for me to want to chew it up and talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So there's been a couple different things, and the one that I came across from coast to coast, this was like at the end of July, and it shows what could be the Lake Champlain monster spotted on sonar. And the only reason I put this in here is because if you see the picture, it looks like it's Nessie or something in sonar. So just by the fact that it looks like that on the screen, is kind of why we're
Oh, okay.
putting it on there. So the sonar equipment on board a boat at Lake Champlain rather picked up a remarkable object, which is believed it could be the site's legendary monster Champ. And so the image was taken and was captured and of course put up to the internet. It was captured by a vessel that was captained by Scott Thurber, and he put basically he just put a picture on Facebook.
Yeah.
It says, we had the pleasure of seeing this image on our Garmin EcoMap Ultra HD this afternoon while fishing lake trout. And he also indicated they were basically at the bottom of the screen of the image was this little lake trout that he's looking for. So the fact that the trout are small and this is very large, and it looks like Nessie or Champ, made it worthy of kind of putting it on Facebook. And people are like, it's very bizarre because there's Champ researcher Katie Elizabeth talked about it. And of course, Thurber says, I can't explain what it actually is, but I know it's not normal shape for bait fish or just basically the fish you're looking for.
Yeah.
Which he sees all the time. He calls them bait balls. The fish kind of swarm around.
Yeah.
They make like a ball. So it's a pretty cool little picture. So and it's like, we'll put this in there and talk about it a little bit. And we do have a link, of course. So if you go to the show notes and you click it, you can see it too. You probably have already seen it.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if this guy, Scott Thurber, is the same Thurber that was on one of the mine shows where they go digging stuff up. I think that guy's name is Thurber. He's got like this big, thick mustache.
Well, Coast to Coast does link to the
discovery and all that
the
stuff.
original Facebook post. And I don't know. He does run something called IrishRaidersOutfitters.com or something like that. So, yeah.
I don't know. Just simply for the fact that the picture looks like Champ or Nessie.
Yeah.
Is why I put it in here. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, that's something that's pretty interesting. It's more than just like a little splash on top of the water, and they're like, look, it's a monster. It's like, could be a snapping turtle. Could be anything, right?
Yeah.
Something big. So that was pretty cool. And there's another one that we stuck in there, too. And this is the first Loch Ness Monster contact. Now, if you look at that picture that they put up there, it's a sort of a squiggly thing with possibly a tail. Doesn't look anything as cool as the Garmin Ultra HD, but it's also probably stupid deep.
Yeah.
And so it's a strange-looking sonar image from Lake Champlain that was brought up, right, to look for it. And, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
So the fact that you have these two images is...
And I looked at this article because a lot of this is based on some stuff that happened in the 50s and the 70s.
Yeah, when they seen it like 90 fathoms down.
Yeah, and I also said, I'm sorry, this is like size 9 font on a web page. I'm not reading all this.
Yeah, font's too small, did not read, right?
Yeah. Or, well, I mean, that's just so much. And I'm like, okay, I get it. There's a lot of information about the experience and what actually happened, but... yeah, just give me the evidence so I can look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's been a alleged skunk ape sighting, and I haven't heard of those in a while, so kind of put that in there. Also on Coast to Coast.
There's
This is like video game camera photographs skunk ape in Florida. And to me, it doesn't look like a skunk ape. It looks like a real monkey.
It does.
So it's kind of hard to say exactly what the face looks like because the way game cameras work and people think that they're, great quality. All game cameras are trash. And if you are a game camera company and you're listening to me right now and you want to disagree, send me one, I'll review it. And I'll tell you it's trash because it is. They're basically webcams that record, and the optics on them are not as good as they could be or should be. Your cell phone can do a better job in most instances. And a regular camera does a much better job. And if you make like a real devoted game trap using an SLR or something, you get amazing results.
Yeah.
And the point of all this is to say that when I look at this picture of what could be the face, it looks like it was moving. And since it records at a weird frame rate, or a standard frame rate using a weird refresh rate and a weird sort of codec, if you will.
Yeah.
That it's hard to say if it's the actual face that looks like a monkey or if the head was moving or turned, which gave it the appearance of looking like an actual ape. Because it could be, it looks like there's a possibility that's an ear and this thing is behind a log kind of doing its thing. But it's still kind of hard to say.
And even that, if I go and look up photos of some of the apes and monkeys and stuff like that, even with the motion, I'm having a hard time picturing a real monkey or primate. Yeah,
and it's a still image, of course, from the game camera, and it's blown in. There's a link to a YouTube video where you can kind of look at it where somebody talks about it. I hope it's an ape or a skunk ape because I like the idea of apes being loose in Florida. In and around Florida, because the legend goes that when they were making when they were making the Tarzan movies, like way back in the day, that they would get all these animals, and then sometimes they would just let them go when they were done filming. But I don't know what it is though, and so I kind of stuck it in there because I'm like, this is kind of interesting because it kind of looks like an ape at first glance, and you're like, that might really be the skunk ape. Not for sure. But yeah, all game cameras are trash. I'm saying it. We bought like 4 or 5 of them at varying degrees of cost, and it's still sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
So it could be a trick of light and shadow combined with relatively poor quality, but I'll be the first one to admit capturing things out in the great outdoors is hard.
Yeah.
Especially when you're like, I'm just going to set this right here and I'll come back in a week.
Yeah, and it's funny because anything.
But I just wish they'd use better optics.
Yeah, anything from prolonged exposure of a game camera, even if you go the extra mile after it's already, because they are designed to be insulated and waterproof and stuff like that. even if you make sure it's shaded or, protected additionally, and when you do that, you might not get the best footage. Eventually, over time, these outdoor devices wear down and their quality degrades as well. I've had an outdoor camera for 2 years now, and even I've started to notice the quality
three of them, and they're not good.
Yeah, the quality degrades partially because they're in the sun all the time, or they're in changing environments all the time.
Yeah, well, I mean, you're starting off with equipment that's just not the best to begin with.
Yeah.
And all the companies out there buy their equipment and to sell their product. They don't actually make it.
They don't make the
They'll
camera
get it from like a Chinese company and rebrand it, that kind of thing. So everybody's getting the same trash. Yeah. Now, if you were to make one yourself and do all that, where you can actually put quality equipment in there, it becomes cost prohibitive unless you're like working for National Geographic or you got a ton of money.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, there's steps that are involved with that camera that have to happen before you can take a picture. Like it has to be on, the focus has to be there, and it's all sorts of things. So what they should do is they should sell the same technology that takes a picture of your freaking license plate when you go by.
Yeah.
And have you be able to use that, because, they're all about making money. So they got to get a good, clean license plate picture when you go blowing through the yellow light, or you took off too soon in a stoplight or something.
Huh.
And we'd have probably the clearest picture of Bigfoot sightings out there if they use that. But I don't know. Maybe it's just a little bit of a rant because we keep buying these things, and it's just like, why bother?
Yeah.
Why bother? Because every once in a while you get really good picture, but as soon as you take the video and you bring it up to size, it falls apart.
Yeah, and part of it is like, am I being stuck up because I worked with cameras in the past, and I worked with cameras?
Well, the manufacturers would say yes, that you have to lower your expectation. Yeah. But like, you can't show me. It's the same thing, and and the thing is that when you buy these from Amazon or somewhere like that where you can read online reviews, when the people don't have an idea of what should be considered a good picture, just the fact that they got a picture like this is great. I'm like, that's chromatic aberration all over the place. You got purple fringing.
Yeah.
It's distorted, and they're like, this is amazing. It looks fantastic. It's like, no, it doesn't. But it's all right. This is just as bad as when you order something from Walmart and have it delivered, right? And somebody will have a problem with delivery and they go rate the product. Like, what did you think of apple juice? Well, the driver left it on the steps and didn't bring it in the house. I rate it, you give it like a 1 star. It's like, that has nothing to do with the product.
Yeah.
That's all right. Maybe the expectation I have is too high. I don't think you're being stuck up. I think that there should be a reasonable expectation of quality. And that's how you know.
Yeah, and the reasonable expectation is being skewed by the consumer. This is one of those moments where I could rant on the consumer as well as the manufacturer, because people are giving like 5-star reviews to something that's equivalent to like, oh, if I spend $699, I'm going to get a decent image. No. And I'm like, no, that's the same quality as like a point and shoot camera that only costs $200.
Yeah, not even that.
And some people don't want to spend $700 on a trail camera.
No, I mean, I would rather forego, and that's how you know. When you look at a product and it has 1 million features and extra doodads and gizmos that come with it, it's to compensate by the quality that the image is going to give you, which is garbage.
I literally got told the other week, well, if you want better footage, buy this thing. And I clicked on it. And it was like $549.
Yeah. And guess what? It's not going to be any better.
No. So
it's because the same company makes them all, or the same companies, and they all have the same sensor. They all have the same garbage lens. They have all the same stuff.
The only difference between that camera and the one I currently have is that, yes, like you were saying, all the camera bits come from the same manufacturers. The $549 price tag was more based on, from what I observed, how they housed it. So maybe they insulated it better.
Yeah, but maybe, you can have the most insulated camera in the world. If it has a garbage lens, you're going to get garbage picture.
Exactly.
So garbage in, garbage out.
So,
speaking of garbage, going back into the podcast, check it out. All right. So the other day, with all the UFO flap stuff that was going on, right? Anyway, it is what it is. I like we said last podcast, we just want to see something. I did come across another podcast on YouTube from a dude named Sean Ryan. And he had a clip of this guy talking about, he was basically a contractor, and he went to an underground base in Fort Bragg in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. And so we're in North Carolina. And we happen to know Mary Joyce, and she's been, she's written a book on underground military bases and stuff like that in North Carolina. The fact that there may be one at Fort Bragg, decided to go ahead and put it in the podcast. So as I was watching the clip where the dude was talking about it, and it was an interesting clip. It wasn't necessarily UFOs. It was inside the clip that he was talking about, or, basically the meat and bones of the clip itself, was that he seen like a huge monolithic slab of stone being like levitating, just being supported by something. And that ties into how did they build the pyramids and Boomtabooku and all them other places, like how did they put them all together?
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty interesting to put in there. So as I watched the clip, it got down to the bottom, and this guy, Sean Ryan's like, hey, content creators, we appreciate you sharing our content, and we put some files together, and if you want to share it, you can. And you know what that is?
What?
That's content you can't get dinged on.
Cool.
There's no copyright going on, and he wants to share it. And I'm like, I thought it was interesting, so I grabbed a couple of those clips, and we're going to play them for you.
All right.
So what do you think about that?
Let's play them.
Prepare to be amazed. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I just got to remember, I have to play this in the correct order so that we don't get in trouble. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. All right. So here's the first one. Okay, so this first clip is just basically Sean Ryan talking about his podcast and stuff, and the whole that you can share the content. So, this is kind of the way that we're going to say, hey, you can check out Sean Ryan's podcast and do it right. You ready?
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the show. You're in the middle of a 3-part UFO whistleblower series. This is part 2. Today we have DC Long, an Army combat veteran who witnessed a hovering monolithic structure in an underground facility on an Army base. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what you see, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Go to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. And for those of you that are content creators, we've seen you guys pulling our content off of our episodes, and we really appreciate it. We made it easy on you. There's a link below. It's got hundreds of raw reels that you can take, download for free, make your own content out of it, monetize it, make money. All we ask is you tag the show. Love
I was
you
the
all.
first man in the stick. Just, told us the 30-second sign. We're all hooked up and ready to go. The jump master's got his arm up, getting ready to hit me in the back.
Okay. So before we jump into the clips where dude's talking, he has an experience with his dad. And from what I gathered, my real quick sort of brief research is, his dad owns a company. He went to go work with his dad. And he was still in the service. Anyway, he went to go help his dad out. His dad had a job to do, needed extra help. So he went, and they went to Fort Bragg. And so he talks about his experience going into Fort Bragg. And so we're going to play that first.
We had an escort coming from JFK Warfare to meet us and take us to a place called Range 19. They pick us up in a van. We get in the back of it. They take us out about 15 minutes. The van that they had us in, it didn't have any windows. You couldn't see to the front. It was just a cattle car. We get there, and as soon as the door opened, it looked like a literal dump. One of the guys looks at my dad, saying to both of us, keep your head down, your eyes on the hills of the man in front of you, or you'll be shot.
What exactly were you guys there to do?
What he told me was that we were going down below ground to set up a shoot house. As soon as I looked past them, I could see this giant monolithic slab. The closer we got to it, I could feel this intense vibration. So the closer I got, I was like, well, I got to check this out. So I go down to one knee, thinking I got to tie my boots. And then I glance up underneath it, and there's absolutely nothing underneath this damn thing. I was the first man in the stick. They gave us, told us the 30-second sign. We're all hooked up, ready to go. The jump master's got his arm up, getting ready to hit me in the back. And then we see shuffling, and I'm only one of 12 guys that I jump with every time. It never deviated, no change. That was my team. A guy from the back shuffles his way to the front, and it's one of the escorts. He is unmistakable. You can't. I mean,
really?
You know.
Yeah.
At first, it just didn't connect with me. I just gave him a, hey, how you doing? And he just winked at me. As soon as that jump master's arm came up and the green light's getting ready to go off, no sooner than it hit and I felt his arm coming down, I feel something slap me on the side of the face, and it was a static line. And that man took off out of the aircraft. And when he did, it snapped my neck and it pulled me out upside down, deployed my combat gear. Long story short, at a complete oscillation, and I just smacked the ground, and I woke up a month later. Career's over.
You think that was an assassination attempt?
I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was.
Yeah. So, there has been whistleblowers in the news. I've seen this, and I'm like, this is pretty interesting. Whether or not this guy is credible, I don't know.
Yeah.
And those clips have been edited by Sean Ryan's podcast to, I guess, give them continuity.
Okay.
When you try to take like a 30-second clip and like get rid of all the inane conversation we have and get right to the meat and potato.
I know.
And with the second, or actually the third part of the clip where he talks about being in the jump. So he was in the military and he jumped, right? Yeah. He was like so that guy, he said it was an escort, was one of the escorts that took him and his dad into the facility. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, he thinks that it was an attempt on his life because of what he'd seen and the fact that he started kind of being vocal about it. There's another clip where his dad basically disowned him.
Oh. And
said, I can't speak to you. I will never speak to you again, because it put, his dad was basically saying it put his entire family in jeopardy.
Okay.
So, who knows? I don't know. It's a whistleblower thing. It's in North Carolina, Fort Bragg. And we've heard before by other places and other people about underground base.
And levitation.
Yeah, in and under Fort Bragg. And when he says literal dump, he means it is the dump that you're in. And if you don't know, a shoot house is like an underground, it's where you can,
shooting
like
range.
A gun range.
Yeah.
So you can test weapons or do whatever. And so, if you add that one to the mix, that means there's at least 5 here in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Deep underground military bases called DUMBs. But I don't know. We put it in here, and I'm like, hey, man, this was pretty interesting. And the fact that they want you to share it, and they're like, yeah, just share it, make money, do whatever. And it's like, we won't make any money off this at all. But the idea that you can share it and be cool with it, I thought it was pretty interesting. So I really haven't watched too much of the Sean Ryan podcast, but the clips I've seen have been pretty interesting. So you can follow it if you want or not. So it's completely up to you. Yeah. Anyway, we shared.
Yeah. Oh.
And you're all skeptical, making a skeptical face.
And it's funny because just like all the other whistleblowers, I have my reservations and I have my own questions. Like, okay, so if you woke up a month later, where was the investigation? Things like that.
They probably thought that he was going to be dead. He woke up at a hospital after being in a coma. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. Cut him some slack.
Still.
And where's what investigation?
Any jump that results in a fall with
malfunction.
It does not end at equipment malfunction.
Because in the military, you'd be surprised at how quickly things stop being an issue. Because who's going to investigate it? The government.
I used to know somebody who had to
it
do
doesn't matter
all
who you used
the
to know.
paperwork, and
Doesn't
it does
matter.
not just stop at a safety investigation
Well,
or equipment
you
investigation.
don't know at all, and I don't know at all. This is just a clip from a
Which
podcast.
is why I have my own questions.
Okay, you'd have to do your own research to figure out if whatever happens, happened. Based off this clip, you can't make any insinuation as to what happened for an investigation or whatever.
And you can also not
he said
just
his career was over.
digest it as, oh, okay,
Well, you can't do that with anything. I'm not asking you to.
No, I'm not saying you are.
I think you're...
I think you're getting very defensive
I
over
think
this
you're...
clip.
How dare you, first off? How dare you?
And...
Threads is dead, Omi.
Yeah, it is. Didn't even let me get to my second point.
All right, go ahead and get to your second point.
This Sean Ryan person is either extremely philanthropic or, willing to share his content.
Look, he's both.
Okay.
And you should probably spend about 12 seconds watching him.
He's a genius.
Before you make.
I will say. So.
Look. Before you try to like blast somebody like Sean Ryan or whatever,
I'm not.
and you're trying to put them in the same category of people you don't like.
No.
That's unfair.
You're getting very defensive.
I'm not, because you're like.
I am skeptical. I am just always skeptical.
But you're like, this guy put it on the air. I hate him, and I hate the guy talking. It's like, just relax. We played 22. This is why I'm not going to do this play a clip for you anymore. Because 21 seconds into it, you're like, this is all shit. It's all trash. I don't trust skeptics or whistleblowers. I don't trust anybody. And the guy sounds fishy.
You're like, she doesn't trust anybody and she hates their face.
Basically is what it is. I'm like, all right. So, and I put it in there so you could listen to it, and you're like, I'm going to go ahead and trash it. So I thought I was doing a good thing, guys. Evidently not.
Very defensive.
I'm not defensive. I'm just saying, hey, how dare you? I'm trying to do good, and what do?
Get skeptical.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can be skeptical without being what they call an ace-hole. Okay. I didn't want to really say what it was.
What you're presenting me is sus, okay?
No, it's only sus because you didn't take the time to do a little bit of research.
Oh, that's it.
That's it.
Anyways.
Speaking of sus, Threads.
Dead.
I made a prediction.
Yeah.
And you were like, oh, you're just hungry.
I didn't say that.
Right, you did. You pretty much insinuated, oh, you're just hungry, right? You're hangry about the whole thing. That Threads is basically going to not do anything. It's going to blow up and go away.
It is, and it has.
And evidently, if we're just going to take your word for it, we don't have to talk about it.
No, I mean, so some things I had predicted in my head have come true with Threads, and I think overwhelmingly the people who are trying to use it have noticed those things as well, and it's not appealing to me anymore. Threads is based heavily on engagement to the point where I wonder if you have a bad day or only use it for 2 minutes a day, you're not going to get the same engagement you would get on other platforms.
I have a theory.
On top of that, one thing I did not like is when I signed up for an account, it automatically curated lists of people I follow or pay attention to, and added me to automatically follow them as soon as they signed up. But it wasn't a reciprocal follow. So now I am following a bunch of celebrities and a bunch of mid-range celebrities, but nobody's following me back.
Well, yeah. See, here's the real problem with the whole thing. I'm going to make a prediction.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, before we do that, let's talk about what happened. So July 10th, Mark Zuckerberg announced that 100 million people had signed up for Threads.
Yeah.
Right? So a new report from a place called Sensor Tower showed that the app declined severely by July 31st, with the daily average user count decreasing 82%.
It's so hard.
So right out of the gate, boom, and it's less than a month. So it's like 20-something days later or whatever, it decreased by 82%. Now it looks like only 8 million users per day are using Threads, which is down from a peak use of 44 million.
That's horrible.
And active users are using the app less frequently for shorter periods of time, with the average time dropping to 2.9 minutes per day and an average of 2.6 daily sessions. So it's a piece of trash. Even Twitter, which has been renamed to X, is doing better with all the stuff that Elon Musk is doing, whether you like him or not or whatever. It's still doing better, and he's causing issues.
That's one thing.
And this was supposed to be a Twitter killer.
Yeah.
And the reason why this is so funny is that when Threads launched, people were like, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Let me go back and how do I navigate? It's just simple. It's like you doom scroll the whole thing, seeing people that it thinks you want to see. And then if you decided you didn't like it and you wanted to get rid of it, you can't, because it'll delete your Twitter account too.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, I get to see the same people I don't want to see, or the same people I don't mind seeing, but they're not putting anything up either. Nobody's following me. I can't follow people. So how do you cultivate your feed?
And on top of that,
your thread.
That 2.9 minutes that they're quoting for daily usage, this has only been 30 days. a large portion of that 2.9 minutes has been people trying to find answers to a lot of the questions Greg just raised and trying to navigate this app. One of the biggest struggles was when I signed up, many of the posts I did see were from fellow photographers. They're like, okay, well, how do I get myself out there on this? And it's like, do I just share pictures and hope nobody steals them? Do I engage with other photographers? Nobody was there to really...
It's like, do I create specific content for Threads? Do I share stuff that I have on Instagram? What am I supposed to do here?
And I've seen...
I think part of the problem, and this is with all the social media accounts, is that they're doing it based off of... They're calling it when you engage, right?
Yeah.
Engagement. But if it doesn't see you posting every day, multiple times a day, you get no love. And this is recently coming off of... back when YouTube for a while was saying, it's okay to take a break. Well, they're not saying that anymore.
Yeah.
If you don't post every day, sometimes 2 or 3 times a day, you don't even get pushed anywhere. And the theory that I have and have had for a long time is that when it comes to Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and other places, they either are using the same algorithm and basically algorithmic process that YouTube uses, or they're getting it from YouTube. And so when YouTube makes a change, not even 30 days later, the same changes happen somewhere else.
Yeah.
Especially with Facebook. It's like you'll see a change happen on YouTube, and here comes Facebook doing exactly the same thing. And it's like, is Facebook/Meta, how can they do exactly the same thing as YouTube and not get sued for it? I mean, they blatantly will take your video, and people can click it and play on it, and you're like, 1 million people have played my video.
Yeah.
I should see some sort of reflection into YouTube, and you don't.
Nope.
You don't see it at all.
And that was a
And that's money that Facebook isn't getting. I mean, that YouTube isn't getting from advertisers, which supports the entire thing.
And that was a complaint from many popular content creators that already existed on other platforms like Twitch and YouTube. Threads was supposed to fix that by being built on the same structure as something like Mastodon or something. It got really tech heavy, but basically you'd be able to track engagement and cross-posting cross-platform.
Yeah.
And they worded it that way, but me being an end user and not familiar with the software, I don't see how I can track that or measure it.
Yeah.
I mean, actually had a meme that went elsewhere. Somebody shared it on Tumblr, and I'm like, okay, well, how do I actually measure that as a form of engagement?
Now, there is an app called Clapper, which is supposed to was a likely option, I should say, to take over TikTok when TikTok was going to get banned, from senators saying, does it use Wi-Fi? Stupid stuff like that, right? And the fact that, they were doing less issues, right, but being called to task for it, and Facebook, who's had to pay tons of fines and all that stuff, they're doing the same thing. And, Zuckerberg brought the whole thing up and lobbied to have TikTok taken down.
Yeah.
Even though they're doing the same thing. But Threads is dead. And after I posted a couple, 3 or 4 things and waited to see, and I'm like, wow, I'm not doing anything else with this.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of work. And there's no way for me to sort of explore out there and cultivate things that I want to see. Because honestly, a lot of times when you're in a small subject matter group or a group online that could be considered small because the interactions that happen in the electronic age in the year 2023 don't include everybody in the group, because there's still people in the group that are like typing all caps and it's like, I don't believe in the internet. And to me, I'm like, whenever I hear that, I don't use computers. It's like, that's something that you should not be proud of.
Yeah.
Because when you don't use computers, I don't believe in the internet, and you use that as an excuse to not do anything like that, a lot of times your views are out of date. You're out of touch with what's going on, and you may be able to add something insightful and helpful to a conversation, but usually it just turns into not.
Or social media is toxic to my emotional health.
Well, grow a thick skin, man. Because life is toxic.
Or learn how to navigate social media so that you lower your risk of exposure to content you don't want.
Yeah, figure it out. You can always, cultivate it to eliminate
Yes.
things, but they don't do that. And I think that's an excuse too, because life's tough, man. You got to toughen up just a tiny bit,
Yeah.
and at the end of the day, if you have an issue and 10 million people don't, I'm going to go back to Spock.
Yeah.
The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one.
Yes.
That's completely changed now. People are like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, that one person. It's like, dude, maybe I'm wrong. That's kind of the way I look at it. Just saying.
Yeah.
So if you think I'm wrong, let me know. And just let you know, I got a pretty thick skin and I don't care. Just saying. I don't. There's other things to worry about, right? I think that we should be getting our value for the dollar and stop trying to okey doke us with, for your own health.
Yes.
I'm going to give you less and charge you more. Oh, gee, thank you.
Yeah.
And then doing odd things like I'm going to get those little snack size payday candy bars and make sure the wrapper's fluffed up so you think you get one, but really it's the size of a quarter. And guess what? Instead of putting 6, I'm going to put 5 and charge you the same. Yeah. But since we had to go up in price, you're still paying more for it. It's like, stop, man. That's not going to work. What? Is she looking at me?
Yeah. Our dog Pepper is very tuned into what you're saying about food.
Yes.
So
that's a candy bar. She's like, yes. I will eat a little tiny piece of candy bar.
So yeah.
And she hears upstairs neighbor dogs making a racket. So anyway, I think at this point in the podcast, since Omi trashed the wonderful stuff I put on there and went out of my way to get
trash it.
Hurt my little feelings, my thin skin. But no, I like the idea of the military bunker because it just adds to the fact, or not, I shouldn't say fact. It just adds to the idea that in North Carolina there's way more than what we know.
Oh, I agree.
And Mary Joyce wrote a book on it. We've talked to her about it, and she's like, "Oh yeah, there's at least 4." And then we even brought up one that she wasn't aware of.
Yeah. On top of that, Fort Bragg does have a very checkered past of high strangeness, ranging from the theories of the underground base to unexplained deaths to strange events happening around it. So I'm open to that. I'm just, again, I am always skeptical of someone who's a whistleblower, and I'm also
you are aggressively skeptical.
Yeah, I'm also very wary of anyone who's like, use my content. So
it's not, you realize it's not the same guy, right? It's a host.
Yes, I am.
Just making sure.
That's why I said 2 different things.
Well, let me ask you this question: if you're doing a series of UFO whistleblowers, would you want to gatekeep all the information, or would you want it spread far and wide?
No, I definitely want it. I want there to be an open venue for them, but I also want them to be open to, basically open to answering some harder questions.
I saw what I asked you.
Yeah.
Let me make myself clear. If somebody came up to us and gave us information, we're like, wow, this could be crazy. We should probably put this out there.
Yeah.
Would it be safer for us to put it out there and basically say, here, everybody can take it, please spread it? Or should we just gatekeep it, talk about it one time, and wind up dead?
No. I mean, okay. So that goes into other subjects.
Well, that's all part of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that if anybody ever came up and gave us some credible information about anything, we would put that everywhere on the internet we could.
Yeah.
You know why? I'm going to call it the Bob Lazar effect.
Yeah.
What did he do? They started putting the screws to him a little bit, and he just freaked out and went on television. I'm telling everyone. And they were like, whoa.
But we also live in a different climate now where I find it very fascinating that in 2020, our podcast got in a bit of trouble for content we shared regarding things that happened in 2020. Yet a week and a half ago, I saw this incredible New York Times article about the pandemic, and everything that we talked about that our podcast may have gotten in trouble with on a certain social media platform was in that article.
Yeah. Well, we've been talking about it since 2019.
Yeah, and that's the New York Times. Why are they able to present that information?
It's a scale.
Yeah.
It's a problem of scale. We're 2 people, and they're an organization with lawyers.
So.
And now everybody is kind of, whether people want to admit it or not,
yeah,
everything that people, for the most part, I can't say everything, but mostly what the people were, the crazy people, like masks don't work.
Yeah.
And the vaccine's not useful.
I would just say.
And, I got a vaccine to protect myself. Why do I need to wear a mask? That sort of thing. All the things are becoming, yes, that's true.
Okay, many of the pieces of content. I don't want to give specifics because...
Well, no, I'm just... it doesn't matter because New York Times
and here's the other thing. Because I don't want to give specifics because many of the things that we did, talk about, pieces of content, they're still being shut down when being talked about by smaller whistleblowers or smaller platform, like people. I saw one of our podcast listeners have some of their posts. This content's unavailable, like 3 times down in their feed. And, and the same goes for whistleblowers because yes, we want to protect whistleblowers, but also we want to put them up to some level of scrutiny.
No, I agree. But I think the idea that Sean Ryan is sharing his content and says take it and use it, it benefits him for sure.
True.
Because what does he say? The only thing he's doing, because I read this just to make sure if we put something like this on the air that we wouldn't get slapped with anything, right?
Yeah.
Is that he's just following Creative Commons. It basically says you can use this content any way you say fit as long as you give me credit.
Yep.
And that's completely fine. And that's all we're doing. So that's what he's saying. Because at the end of it, he's like, do anything you want to with it, but make sure you let them know where it came from. And that's completely fair.
And that also, it helps because depending on what that content is, if he establishes that presence, then it exists in a way where certain platforms can't take it down.
Right, which is exactly why I played it.
Yeah. So.
Because it happens. We've had our own content. I've had content claims and copyright claims on our own content from third-party companies.
Yeah.
We just use an algorithm to say, we own that. That's the sound of rain. That's us. So, and a lot of times there's nothing you can do because since it's generated automatically and you have such a small following that you're not even a blip on getting a hold of any person who can physically take care of it for you because, again, it's a problem of scale.
Yeah.
They file these suits automatically, and most times people just be like, oh, I don't want to do anything with it, so either they take it down or they turn over what kind of money they would get, whether it be a YouTube video or something like that, to the person making the claim. Yeah. I fight them all. Yeah. So my favorite is, that's mine. I created it, and then I went and found their organization, and I put a little copyright claim on them. And it got dropped. Yeah. A lot of people say, keep a lawyer on file. And because then you can spend like $100 and get a letter from them, and you send them a letter, and they just going to take it off. So, yeah, it's a thing. A lot of times this is out of your control. Speaking out of your control, it's time for what we call BLTs, and those are called. You're not going to play. Why are you making the face, man?
What are they called? Like, What are they called?
I thought you were going to say bacon, lettuce, and tomato.
I'm waiting for your punchline.
It's not as good as a deer eating a snake, but
let's just make
bat, leopard, turkey sandwiches.
What?
Bats, leopards, and turkey sandwiches.
Huh.
That would be delicious. The crispiness of the skin bat wings. Mm-hmm. Be like pork fat, like fried pork rinds.
Yes.
Right. Cheetah probably tastes like chicken or pork or something like that. And we know what a turkey tastes like.
Okay.
Turkey tastes like a turkey.
Bacon, leopard.
Turkeys are delicious.
Bacon, leopard, tomato.
That's right.
Why?
Because I couldn't think of leech.
Thank you guys for tuning into this podcast episode. Questions, comments, concerns, please give our voicemail number a call. It's in the show notes, or contact at CreepGeeks.com. Be sure to find us on social media. We do have a fairly active Facebook group, and we are on TikTok, Instagram, everywhere. So, yeah.
There you go. So be sure to tune in. I cannot talk. Be sure to tune in for the next episode, because part of Dave's drives is he's called and left us multiple messages, and in that toll-free 1-800 number that you can call and do the same thing. And we're going to put it in there in the podcast, and it's about Hat Man. So if you know anything about shadow people, shadow person, it's pretty interesting. So we're going to include that in our next podcast, which will be CreepGeeks Podcast, episode 288. This is season 7. So anyway, do appreciate you taking time to listen. So see you later. Take it easy. Bye, Sickle.
Bye.